Hey, what's up guys? Alex here with a new video, and today we're going to be doing my first impressions and semi-review of the Fujifilm GFX 100S. If you're new to the channel, I am a family and portrait photographer based out of Orlando, Florida, and I am primarily a Canon shooter. I'm actually shooting this with a Canon EOS R6 right now, and I've been shooting with the Canon EOS R system for the last 3 years since it was introduced. But like all photographers, I have a little thing called GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. And ever since the GFX 100S was announced, I have been wanting this camera. I finally got my hands on it. It took a little longer than I expected, but I'm ready to talk about my first impressions. As I do with all my videos, I'll be putting up images so you can see what this camera is capable of. So I've had this camera now for 3 weeks, and I've primarily shot with a Fuji 80mm 1.7 lens, which I'll be doing a separate video on. I want to keep this video strictly focused on the actual camera, and I want to cover a few things: ergonomics, image quality, autofocusing, and who this camera is really for. So let's get started. Ergonomics. I don't know how Fuji did it, but they were able to fit a medium format sensor with in-body image stabilization in the camera that's slightly larger than the Canon EOS R6. As a matter of fact, slightly larger than most mirrorless cameras. It is absolutely incredible that they were able to do that, and I'm blown away by the actual build quality of this camera. For me, the camera feels sturdy. The grip is really solid, and if you have big hands like myself, it fits perfectly. And that's important because for a medium format camera, you're gonna need medium format lenses. Medium format lenses are a little bit girthier than full frame lenses because they have to cover a larger image sensor. But because of that, you really need a good grip. Most lenses on this camera will bring the camera kind of front heavy. So if you have a terrible grip, it's not gonna be a fun experience. So I'm really glad Fuji put in a good grip for this camera because it's extremely comfortable to use. It's another thing a lot of reviewers aren't talking about. This camera is extremely small, light, absolutely, but the lenses are not. Now, I think Fuji maybe has one lens that's a little bit on the smaller side, the 50 3.5, but most lenses are gonna be on the bigger side. Again, I personally don't mind this. I want the best image quality, so I don't mind a larger lens, but it does defeat the purpose of a smaller body. So keep that in mind. I like traveling around with my Peak Design 10-liter bag, and that bag barely fits this camera with a Fuji 80 1.7. It fits, but barely. It's a struggle to zip it up, but it gets the job done. So ergonomics and build quality, definitely very impressive. What about image quality? We're talking about a medium format 100 megapixel sensor. Image quality is incredible. I'm absolutely blown away by it. And I wasn't expecting to be blown away by it. And here's why. Maybe you are as well, but I'm part of tons of Facebook groups and Instagram groups where people share their GFX images. And every time I see the images, as good as they are, and there's some great ones out there, nothing screams medium format when I see them. I'm always thinking, I could have probably done that with a full frame camera. When you actually play with the files, they are just incredible. The color depth, the detail, the Fuji color science, the files coming out of this camera are absolutely incredible. Everything you see on Facebook or Instagram does not do it justice, and we'll get to that point at the end of this video. High ISO is also another thing that I was pretty impressed by this camera. I wasn't expecting for it to be a low light monster. You're talking about a 100 megapixel sensor. I shot it up to ISO 3200 and it is extremely usable. I'm probably gonna push it to ISO 6400 one of these nights to see how it looks, but I was definitely very impressed by its low light capabilities. Overall, this camera does not disappoint when it comes down to image quality. It is by far some of the best image quality I have ever seen on any camera. And I think the Fuji color science really adds the extra oomph to that. Now, with the image quality of this camera, my preset, it's not for sale yet, I know you're gonna ask about it, is legitimately a one-click preset. It's a lie, it's a two-click preset. I literally add my preset, fix the white balance, and the image is done. Like, the color science here with Fuji is just on another level. And like I said, from an image quality perspective, 10 out of 10, blown away by the images. What about the autofocusing? This is the first medium format camera that has phase and contrast detect autofocusing. and it is pretty good. So again, another thing most reviewers aren't talking about, this autofocusing system is extremely fast for medium format. If you're comparing this to any of the latest mirrorless cameras, it does not come close to the tracking and accuracy. But if you're comparing it to medium format cameras, I think this is the best system on any medium format camera currently out right now. For static subjects or even slow moving subjects, this camera is snappy and it nails focus almost all the time. Now, if you add a little bit of movement, the camera all of a sudden does start to struggle and your hit rate will decrease. But I'm gonna say it makes sense. You're pushing medium format glass, massive sensor, lots of movement. I'm gonna forgive it. This camera wasn't designed, or at least I don't think it was, or made for sports photographers or even photography with quick movement. So I can understand why it struggles and is not obviously up to par to any of the full frame cameras that are currently out there right now. But definitely very impressed with this system. I happened to use the GFX 50R almost 2 years ago. Even though I had zero issues with that system, it was a little on the slower side. With this system, I'm not really necessarily asking for more speed. I think the issues really kind of happen with tracking and nailing focus with moving subjects. If it's a static subject or even slowly moving, zero complaints with this autofocusing system. So what are my thoughts overall for this camera? I'm blown away by the image quality. I'm blown away at the fact that this is a medium format camera that just is in my hand. Look how small this is. And even though I'm blown away by everything about this camera is not for me. Let's talk about that. So I am a family and portrait photographer. Recently retired wedding photographer, I should add. And all my photos, all my galleries I've ever done have primarily been consumed online, Instagram, Facebook. Some couples have printed albums, 8x10s. And some couples, when they do bridal sessions, they definitely blow those up to larger prints that they print for their reception, their wedding. And I've never had an issue with the R6 that I'm currently filming with right now at 20 megapixels. So what am I going to use 100 megapixels for? You can say cropping and tons of other things. The reality for me and my clients is I'm not. Even when I do product photography, most of my clients are shrinking the files to a megabyte or less, so their website isn't bogged down by large images, which again, defeats the purpose of 100 megapixels. So I think if you're a photographer who knows that you need the resolution, your clients are asking for the resolution, this camera is for you and you won't be disappointed. But if you're a photographer like me, who just kind of wants it for gas, right? The gear acquisition syndrome, it's not necessarily worth it. I even did a poll on my Instagram asking which one's medium format, comparing between the GFX 100S and the EOS R6, and almost everybody got it wrong. So again, if your clients, your customers are primarily consuming images via the internet, Instagram, Facebook, printing albums, you don't necessarily need 100 megapixels. You don't necessarily need to change your entire workflow, to slow it down, to buy a new computer, because you're not necessarily adding anything that your customers will notice, or even, I hate to say this, will appreciate it. So that's a tough conclusion. Because again, I'm a pixel peeper, I'm a photographer, and as much as I love the image quality, I gotta recognize that $6,000 for the body plus $2,000 for the lens, you're talking about almost a $9,000 investment. If it's not gonna push my business forward for my particular client set, it's not worth it for me. So as good as this camera is, I'll be selling it for those reasons. But what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm gonna be doing a video talking about the Fuji 80mm 1.7 lens next. And then I'll be doing a video comparing that lens with the RF 50 1.2, which is my favorite lens of all time, so you guys can see the difference in image quality. As always, please feel free to comment down below, add me on Instagram. Love to have a discussion with you. Like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one, guys. Peace.